Good morning, class, and welcome to another fun-filled video from the world of Anthropology 101. I'm still Faye. We are finishing up our week 3 and starting on week 4, and I have a few tips and suggestions as you move into your next week's work again. First, I'm recording this video on Monday. Today is the due date for your rough draft, and I really hope that you have every intention of getting your rough draft in today for 2 reasons. 1, I want you to get all the points that you can. But 2, turning in your rough draft gets you all kinds of helpful suggestions that will make your final paper stronger. Together, the rough draft and the final paper put together are 35% of your grade for this class, so it's very important that you do well on it. Okay, let's see. Oh, and to that end, if you've already submitted your rough draft, or even if you haven't, please remember that after submitting, you want to push that little button that says Check Assignment Submission to make sure not only has your paper been uploaded to the internet, but that you've uploaded the correct copy. So you want to check assignment status, then actually look at the assignment online and make sure that it's not, for instance, the blank copy of the worksheet that you downloaded last week and then you don't actually have the work that you did up there. So be sure to do that. Another quick tip as you're moving towards turning in your rough draft today is to be sure that you push the Turn It In button on your assignment so that you can check for yourself whether you have inadvertently plagiarized anywhere on your paper. Please be aware that everything you submit to me is automatically run through Turn It In. So if you've put some plagiarized material or things that you haven't provided a reference or a citation for, I will know. And you will get marked down for that. You might get a 0 on your paper. You can avoid that whole experience by running it through Turn It In yourself. I won't see that report. That gives you time to fix the areas in your paper in which perhaps you haven't given correct attribution for the work that you've done. Okay, let's see. Oh, I have a few tips on your discussion forums. One of them is that work is intended to be a balanced and substantial piece of work. What I mean by balanced is, I do want to hear your own opinion, and I also want to hear what you've learned. I want to see both of those things. So you're not going to get full points for an answer that is entirely cut from the text, but you're also not going to get full points for an answer that is just, this is what I think about marriage, say. It needs to be both. It needs to both present the anthropological point of view, and then also go into some deeper analysis of what you think about that and whether it rings true to you or whether you disagree with how anthropology sees it. Try to get both of those perspectives in your posts. Also, if you're given a question that says, for instance, like we had this last week, to discuss supernumerary genders, you're going to have a stronger entry if you pick one example and go into detail describing it, as opposed to saying, well, there's Hejira and they're like this, and there's Two-Spirit people and they're like this, and then I read about this other thing on the internet and they're like this, and you only have a sentence or 2 about each of those things. You want to pick one example and talk about it in detail. Okay, let's see. Also your peer discussions, peer responses in the discussions are intended to be substantial as well. Nobody is interested in seeing a peer response that is, yeah, that makes sense to me, good job, nice post, do well in school. Okay? You want to actually engage with what the other student has written. For instance, you could read it and say to yourself, wow, they understood this post in a really different way than I did. And so you could explain your own understanding of the topic and question the other person about how they got to that different place. Or you can add in an outside reference and say, oh, I found this cool thing that I want to share with you. Here is how it connects to what you wrote, right? It's important to have it engage with the actual material we're talking about and the person's post. Okay, let's see. Oh, to that end, you may have noticed in our discussion so far that you get 2 sort of sets of comments on it. You get the filled out rubric, this is the points you get for the discussion you wrote, and then you also get some personal comments from me. It's been my experience in this class that students that are liable to read the personalized comments I put on there and use them to improve their work by week 4 have already done that. And students that are not interested in what I have to say about it and are just going to keep writing the way that they're going to keep writing are in that same place also by week 4. So at this point I start just pasting in the rubric to show what the points breakdown is. That is not to say that I'm not happy to give you personalized comments. You can fire me off an email and say, why did I get this on this post, or I don't understand how this happened, and I'm happy to go into more detail. But in general, your response, your discussion forum grading sections will be shorter over the next 2 weeks. Let me know if that doesn't work for you. Let's see. Oh, so we talked about rites of passage this last week. And I want to be clear that we were talking about rites of passage in the way that anthropology sees it. This is, kind of my tagline, the way that anthropology sees it. And that is that a number of you gave examples in your discussion of things that were rituals in your family or things you remembered as a child, but they didn't really speak to the anthropological meaning of a rite of passage, which is something that changes you, changes your role in the community, in the eyes of the community. So it wouldn't just be a family thing, it would be a larger, broader experience. So, for instance, if you say, when every boy in my family turns 12, he gets a gun and learns how to hunt. That would be a family tradition, but not a rite of passage necessarily, or not a puberty ritual in the way we've been talking about, because it's not an experience shared by the community, and it's not something that changes you in the eyes of your community from a boy to a man, just as an example. Let's see. We also talked about supernumerary genders this week. Alternative genders. And as I said in last week's video, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear that by that we mean gender roles outside of masculine and feminine, as opposed to gender roles, a community that has only two genders like we do, and they're masculine and feminine, but they don't match up to ours. Like they have different expectations for men and women than we have. That might be an alternative way to look at gender, but it's not an alternative gender role or a supernumerary gender role, which is having more than two options, like the Two-Spirit or the Hejira, or a number of different kind of transgendered ways of looking at the world. Okay, so, and as you were writing that post, a number of students, every time I teach this class, read this thing in the text. And because it makes sense to them, it becomes what they read in the text, and they don't read the whole thing. So, people will comment that, that our text says that this particular researcher, Hobels, said that folks who are Two-Spirit are because they were not brave, didn't want to hunt, wanted to take on womanly roles, and students grab on that piece of information and write their discussion forum about it, basically saying that Two-Spirits are folks who were born male but were too wussy to be guys. And so that's why they're Two-Spirits now. They put on a dress, they turn into girls, done. But it's important to note that in our text it actually says that Hobels erroneously thought that at first, because he was looking at Two-Spirits through the eyes of his white European anthropologist experience, right? And that now we actually see that much more as a false construct, that it was his own colonial gendered ideas, and that it's much more that folks are having a difficult time fitting into the gender roles that are possible, and so the community makes up another one which is also accepted and okay and might mix qualities of both the genders, but isn't, you're not good being a guy, you're a wimpy guy, you could be a Two-Spirit instead. Okay, so upcoming in this next week we're going to talk about religion. I always have lots of really religious people in the class who are excited about this week. I do want to share with you that we are going to be talking about religion from an anthropological point of view, which means that I'm excited you have personal religious experience to add into the discussion. But as I said earlier in the video, you want to make sure that you are also presenting the anthropological view of religion and spirituality, that your goal here is not really proselytizing about your own personal religious faith, not conversion, but understanding of one another and how we're talking to each other, right? Okay, so keep that in mind as we move forward. It's week 4, so there's no assignment this week, which is probably a great relief to you. But that's on purpose, so you have some extra time to work on your final paper, which again, as we said earlier, is 25% of your grade. I have a few quick things for that. Please be sure, please, when you get your rough draft back, you want to actually open the document, not just look at my comments in the grading section, but open the document, because I will have put comments all the way through your paper, When I get your final paper, I'm going to compare what you wrote in your final paper to your rough draft. So if I made, 16 suggestions to make your paper stronger, and you didn't open that, you didn't look at them, you didn't do any of the things I asked you to do, that's going to be reflected in your grade. Be sure to read the comments on your rough draft. Be sure to turn your rough draft in so you get those comments. Remember that it's not too late to ask for help. Not this week, not next week. You're going to get your rough draft back. You still have the opportunity to ask me for more clarification, look for some new sources in the library. You can ask a librarian for help with that. There's all kinds of great help in the Writing Center for our class. There's live links right there in the assignment for you. You can submit the paper to them, and 2 days later they'll send you back a whole bunch of comments on how to make it stronger. Or you can do live chat right in that moment, like, I don't know how to cite this source, or what do I do with this internet blog? Is that an okay source for an academic paper? Those are all great questions for the instant chat business there in our class. So ask for help. Ask for help. Ask for help from me. I'm still perfectly happy to meet with students over Skype or by email, and let's make that final paper as strong as it can possibly be. And then my very last comment for this video is, please remember, I am using the same Google you are. If you can find that information or that plagiarized paper or that section on Google, it's going to come up on mine too. So please be sure that everything you write is your own work, that you are correctly attributing work that is written by other people to those authors, and that you are being clear about things even when substantially paraphrased still require a citation. Please be very careful with all of that. I have students every single time I've taught this class, and this is my 7th or 8th time, every single time I get complete papers that were gotten on the internet. They come right up in Google. Lots of papers with substantial chunks taken from the internet come up on Google. So, and then you get a 0, and then you get turned into the university. That's no fun. It's no fun for me. It's no fun for you. You are paying for this education. You deserve to do yourself the favor of doing the work and learning something. So that's it. This is the end of my week 4 video. I'll see you again at the beginning of next week, and be sure to holler at me if you have any questions. faye.goodman@faculty.ashford.edu.